How long a variable lives, or the scope of a variable, turns out to be very important. As you're walking through a loop, as you're walking through conditionals, if you're unsure as to the value of a variable, this is a problem. So you want to make sure you understand fully how that works within a language. Within JavaScript, it's pretty simple. Scope is controlled by functions. If you declare something outside of a function, it is globally accessible. If you have it within a function, it lives within the function. So let's go ahead and type some code and see how that looks like in practice. So we're going to go ahead and declare a variable here. Let's call it name. Let's assign to it the value of Michael. And then in the next line, we're going to write it to the console so we can inspect the value. Next, we're going to create a function to test how scoping works within the language. So let's go ahead and create a variable. Let's call it scope test. And to it, we can assign an anonymous function. Inside of it, we're going to declare and assign the same variable again. Except this time, we're going to assign Peter to it. Then on the next line, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to write it out to the console so we can see what the value is. Let's go ahead and close that. And then we will execute scope test. Now at this point, we will write console.log one last time to see if the value of the global variable has been affected. Okay? Let's go ahead and load this into our browser. Let's go ahead and open up Developer Tools. And as we can see here, we have a breakpoint. We're stopping at Michael. Let's go ahead and open up the console so we can see the outputs. And let's go ahead and step through the code. We can see here that as expected, Michael is written to the console. Next, we define our function. We run our scope test, which should write Peter to the console. And then we go back to the main body of the program and we will write out the value of name so we can see if the global value has changed. And we can see there that it hasn't. So that's some of the basics of how the scoping works within JavaScript. Let's go ahead and let's close this one too. And let's go ahead and add one more thing to this program. Let's go ahead and write variable city and assign to it a value of Boston. And we can go ahead and write it to the console within the function. It's a city, and we can also write to it, try to access that value at the end of the console here. Now this should give us an error because it's no longer in scope. Let's go ahead and load up the program into the browser. Let's go ahead and reload that page, and let's go ahead and open up the console once more and step through the code. We should get Michael here just as before. We define the function. In this next line, we should get Peter and Boston corresponding to both of those console.logs in line 11 and 12. Let's go ahead and run that. We can see that we get just as expected Peter and Boston. Now we get Michael, which is the global value of name, and then we're going to try to access city, and this should give us an error. Yes, correct. It's not defined because it is no longer in scope. So those are the basics. Make sure you understand them well. Scope is a very important part of programs. How long a variable lives is something you need to understand well.